Hello and welcome to Empower Hour. Today's topic is starting with a solid foundation. This video, or this topic rather, is for hiring managers and starting with a solid foundation in your hiring process. And that starts with your candidate profile. So, what you are looking for in your candidate profile, and then why you are looking for those things specifically. Now, if you're not a hiring manager and you're curious, absolutely, I invite you to stay tuned in because starting with a solid foundation can apply to other areas, of course, in life as well. Anytime we are looking to overcome a challenge and or achieve a goal, we are much more likely to have success when starting with a solid foundation. And so what do I mean when I say starting with a solid foundation? What I mean is establishing what it is you want, but then firmly backing it up with why you want it. And then from there, if what you want and why you want it makes sense, then you have a solid foundation from which to start. And you are much more likely to have success and also with less stress. So, for hiring managers, that's what we want. We want to help you make lasting hires with confidence and with less stress throughout the process. So, let's go ahead and get into it. And of course, I'll share some specific examples. Sometimes we know a lot of the elements as far as what we're looking for in a candidate profile, and not all, and sometimes we're not very sure. It may depend on your company culture, where you're at with your company, whether it's a startup or an established company, but chances are you have some idea of the type of culture that you either already have or would like to create within your company or within your division. Maybe it's an established company and you're starting a new division. You really want to take into account the culture that you have or that you would like to create when determining your candidate profile. I've seen this example quite a bit where hiring managers at the start of their search will say, "We need to have candidates that have experience and relationships in this therapeutic area." And so that can work great. However, you want to think a little bit more deeper about why you want that specific profile. Because let's say, for example, that your recruiter goes out and they find candidates that check those boxes. They have experience in the space and they have relationships. However, they're coming from a very different type of culture that they're used to than what they would be, what they're going to be getting in joining your company. So even if they seem like maybe a plug and play kind of candidate where they've got the experience, they've got the relationships, are they going to be happy and are they going to thrive in the kind of company culture that you currently have or are working toward creating? So if you have somebody, for example, that's coming from a large established company that has all of the systems in place and it's maybe slower moving because there's a lot of layers to go through in order to implement change, and but they've got the experience and they've got the relationships, and then you take them and put them in more of a startup like environment. Even if they have the relationships and the contacts, they may not be very happy. They may not thrive very well in that type of fast moving kind of nimble atmosphere. So then what you have later is likely a recipe for turnover. They've changed their career, they're not happy, they're likely not driving sales and maybe causing some I don't know if disruption is the right word, but when you have somebody on the team that's not a great fit, that can end up carrying over and causing problems throughout the team. In addition to that territory, if we're talking about sales reps here, not performing the way that up to par, and then it takes time to make the transition to start over again and get the right rep in place. So I encourage you, hiring managers, at the start of your process, sometimes, or at the start of your search rather, sometimes it's crunch time. We've got a deadline to go ahead and get this opening filled or get this product launched, and we need our team in place. But you're going to save yourself time later by really giving some deeper thought to, okay, this is the candidate profile, this is what we want, but now let's think several layers deeper as far as why we want it and ask a lot of questions of ourselves to make sure that this actually makes sense. And so by taking time on the front end of your search to really lock in and establish, does what we want and why we want it, does this actually make sense? You're going to later save yourself time from potentially having to start the process over again. So that was an example on culture. Let's look at another example, geography, because I've seen this before as well, where a company is ready to go ahead and get fill an opening, but maybe it's an expansion opening, or maybe they're going to do a little something different with the geography, but they go ahead and tell their recruiter, start searching. This is what we're looking for. And then the recruiter gets searching in one geography, and then several or more than several, many hours later, maybe several candidates have been presented, and then the geography changes. Well, now we've decided to move around the geography, and actually, all of these candidates that have been presented and maybe taken through however many steps in the interview process are now not viable candidates because they just don't live in the new geography that we've decided to focus on. And so that has actually taken a lot of time, not just from the candidate who's taken time away from their current role to invest in learning about and interviewing with your company, but also time from you, the hiring manager. So you've taken, anytime you're taking time away from your leadership duties to even open an email and review a resume on a candidate that's actually not ultimately going to end up being a fit, that is time not well prioritized. And then you've got to reshift your focus back to what you were working on. It ends up being a lot more time lost than just the few minutes of shifting there, because you've lost the momentum that you had, and then you have to work to regain that. And then also you've had your recruiter spend hours searching maybe in the wrong geography, and then they have to start, all over again. So just by, if there's a potential to maybe switch around the territory, it might make sense to hold off and just focus on growing the business and among across your current team until you really lock in what you want with the candidate profile, and make sure that the geography, where you're looking, and all of the other elements make sense. So this is another example of how taking time on the front end of your search can later save you time. And that's the goal. The goal is to not only create lasting future hires with confidence, but also to minimize unnecessary stress and inefficiencies throughout the process. I think I have one more example here. Sometimes I've had this one, this quite often, more often than I'm surprised at how often I hear this. Let me just put it that way. So sometimes the hiring manager knows exactly what they want, and then other times, well, actually, I think most of the time, a lot of the time, a hiring manager will know exactly what they want in a candidate profile, and then sometimes they'll say to a recruiter, or I've heard this a lot. I'm wide open, or this would be nice to have, but I'm actually really open. So if you think that they're a great fit, then go ahead and present them. Or if they're up and coming and don't have a lot of experience yet, I can train them. And this is, unless it's an up and comer kind of role, maybe an associate level role, this is always a bit of a flag to me, because when then we're starting with a really wide pool. And so it's actually, which sounds like being open minded, sounds like it would be a positive thing. But when you can really hone in and be more specific on what it is you want in your candidate profile, then your recruiter can conduct a much more targeted search and later save you time. Because I think 100% of the time, I could be wrong. I have to think more on it. But so far, this is what I typically see when a manager says to me, I'm wide open as far as the candidate profile. I'll get searching. I will dig deeper and say, okay, but if you have your perfect ideal candidate, what does that look like? And I'm going to search there. But also, since they told me that they're wide open, well, I'm also finding this candidate who has not the specific experience, but their skill set could easily or maybe translate here. And they've got these really strong intangibles. So I think they're solid. He or she says that they're open. So let's go ahead and present them. So then what happens then is your recruiter is spending a lot of extra time searching in areas that are maybe not ideal. And then reaching out to candidates, and then interviewing candidates, and then presenting candidates to you. And almost all the time, those candidates don't get looked at, the ones that are not actually exactly or much more closer to what the hiring manager really wanted. So take some time to really lock in, establish as best as you can what it is you want in your candidate profile before articulating that to your recruiter. And that will later save you time, because even if you're not spending time interviewing these candidates that maybe check very few of the boxes, since you said that you were open, but not maybe enough of the boxes, well, that's still a distraction. And your recruiters then not spending their time in the best way, conducting their search that's more targeted, that's going to yield the candidates that you're actually searching for. And then I've also worked on some openings where the profile that the manager starts with saying, "This is what I need to have. This is why I need to have it." Okay, so that's good. We've got a solid what we want in a candidate profile and why. Going and getting started on my search and delivering candidates. But then midway throughout the search, what the hiring manager wants changes. And what that lets me know is that the hiring manager didn't actually know for sure, wasn't super confident in what they wanted in their candidate profile. And the challenge there is that when we don't know what we want, we attract others who don't know what they want. Because think about it, if we're articulating our story, this is what we want, this is why we want it, but then we haven't really locked that in, so we're not sure about it and it later changes. um, we're going to attract others who are okay with that. And so this can be in the hiring process, this can be a recipe for turnover. And I've seen this happen where what the hiring manager wants changes, they end up hiring somebody that doesn't know what they want either. And then they leave because then they start, when you don't know what you want, it's much easier, or much more likely once you start in a role or with a company to then maybe realize, you know what, this actually is not what I wanted. And so when a hiring manager doesn't know what they want, they're much more likely to attract candidates that don't know what they want. And then it's very easy to see how what the company and opportunity has to offer may not be what that candidate is actually looking for. And then you've got the disruption to the territory of the quick turnover, the disruption to the team, the hiring manager has additional stress, and then you have to start the process all over again. So it makes a lot of sense, if you can, to take some extra time on the front end to really lock in what you want and why you want it. And then if you're working with a good recruiter, they'll know that sometimes we check all of the boxes, and it's a great fit. Sometimes we check some of the boxes and not all, but here's why I'm presenting this candidate. They have this, they're missing this. Here's why I think that they're strong. And so if you can really partner with your recruiter on that, on the candidate profile, what you want in your candidate, why you want it, and then trust them that they'll know if they need to tweak the search just a little bit, or if they're not finding the perfect ideal candidate, then they'll know, okay, to go a little bit outside of the box, and here's what I am finding. But the goal is to, of course, make the right hires and have less stress in the process. And you can do that by taking more time, a little more time at the start of your search to really lock in what you want and why you want it. And then you will be much more likely to make the right hires, lasting hires, and have less stress. So hope that that helped. And if you have a question or a topic that you would like for me to speak on, feel free to reach out. You can shoot me a note. You can email me, Amy at amyleemiller.com, Amy at troikatalentacquisitions.com. I'll answer to either. And if it's a topic that I feel like I can bring value, then I will speak on that. But thanks so much for watching, and I will see you all next week. Have a great rest of your day.